How do you see this need of pandemic insurance?
We developed in the first place four principles for a solution. One of these is that any solution, we call it a shared resilience solution, would require costs and responsibilities to be shared across the public and private sector in a meaningful way. In other words, there has to be skin in the game. Right? You know, what we have seen proposals, say, from the US, where actually the role of the insurance sector is limited essentially to that of being an administrator. I think that is not, from our perspective, skin in the game. Secondly, that there will need to be some element of central coordination across the public and private sector. Any solution to pandemic insurance is not going to arise spontaneously. If both the public and private sides are involved, there's going to be required some degree of coordination. The third principle was that any solution would be conditional on effective prevention and adaptation measures. That these are typically required. When you take insurance, they are possible to achieve to different extents depending on the type of insurance. And I think the fourth principle was that any solution can only insure against a portion of the economic costs. This goes back to the capacity point I made earlier, that there has to be a decision about which portion of the costs should be insured. Should it be, for example, a certain sector of the economy, a certain size of business? Should it insure everybody, but only up to an amount? You know, these are sort of questions that have to be discussed, because it's not possible to insure the whole economy.
We need a ruthless and comprehensive view of the risk in every field, in politics, in economy, in nature, and that is true for both the state and businesses. And so the claim that some of these crises were unpredictable is just simply wrong.
We looked at different models of insurance, and we also considered sort of what are the potential institutional structures that might be needed. I don't think it is possible to say at the moment what is the balance, as opposed to saying that there should be a balance. But I think we really should sort of work to see whether there are solutions that render it at least partially insurable.
There is no easy solution. We are pretty much advanced in France in our reflections regarding this risk. The question for the government is, and for the French authorities, is what can be covered in the future in case of pandemics, in order to organize ourselves better. The public should be involved. That if we want to do insurance, it should be compulsory. This is what the insurers immediately said. Will only be for the next pandemics. If we're talking about second, third, fourth wave of these pandemics, this can be insurance. It has to be something else. And the insurance companies were very clear, very, very immediately, that they cannot do, they cannot indemnize such a phenomenon that is spreading all over the economy, and that we had to work on lump sums and something which could be low. On the demand side, from the companies said that they wanted something completely optional, something which was cheap, or at least affordable, really affordable, but with an important coverage. So if you take the demand side and the offer side, and what the companies were saying, it was not that easy to make this work. Let's say that we, for the state, we identified a few principles that we have to bear in mind and to keep in order to find a solution. First of all, that the exposure of the state should be well identified and limited. The protection that we can offer through such mechanisms has to be limited in coverage.
The question also of scope, what should be included, because Lionel made clear that in his mind this was business continuity. But I'd be interested in what you've seen in the market, and maybe also moving on a little bit to scope of any such coverage.
There are three big areas that you need to consider. One has to do with mortality, one has to do with health, and the other one has to do with business interruption. There are two ways to address the scope. One has to do with geographical scope. Should we find a national solution? Should we find a European solution? Leave aside a global solution. That's kind of the first block. The second one is, what do we aim covering? A fully European solution would be great, but you need to move forward, and we all know that it takes time for these European solutions to materialize. Are we targeting size as a criteria? Because we know SMEs are normally worse prepared or have worse contingency plans than larger corporations. Are we talking about criticality of the sector? I mean, one of the elements around TCI, trade credit insurance, that has already been put on the table is precisely that, is the effect that it has and it can have towards the whole of the economy. Are we talking about business model?
At the level of the Commission, we will, of course, look particularly at the issue of business interruption, because this seems to be the, let's say, the most topical problem which we have to deal with.
There is a reputation issue, and in Germany we proceeded from the thesis that about 70% of the damage was covered by social insurance and the state. And what people came up with was the so-called Bavarian solution, which is that the insurance industry and the policyholder agreed to share the difference, so that would be 30% and 15% each. We will have a skin in the game. We already have so much skin in the game that it hurts, but of course we will and we want to play a role when it comes to the pool.
What's the distinction between national solutions and the European solution?
We at Commission level wanted to engage into it.
Yes, European solution would be great, but if we put the elephant in the room, which is funding, at the same time in terms of discussion, we are not going to make the progress green.